Alright, let's do this. The Running Man, another movie I was really excited about. We haven't had much luck with those this year, but hey, Frankenstein was really good, so maybe we finally turned a corner. Maybe. Possibly. I hope. I was looking forward to this movie more than most others this year. I like Edgar Wright a lot as a filmmaker. More often than not, if you want a flick that is polished, stylized, witty, energetic, sharply written, it's really hard to go wrong with an Edgar Wright film. Even when his movies don't necessarily work, they are fun to watch. And you had all the ingredients here for something fun. Subject matter that is so topical it's almost alarming, a charismatic lead whose stock in Hollywood is rising faster than almost anyone else's, a director who's great at staging kooky, inventive action scenes, and a really interesting premise you could do so many cool things with that's ripe to be explored. It's a dystopian future version of America where the economy has pretty much collapsed, creating a lot of classism, separating people into haves and have-nots, the very rich, the very poor, and not much in between. Jobs are scarce, people can't afford healthcare, and society is more or less controlled by megacorporations via a super corrupt media ecosystem that makes people believe all sorts of crazy shit by creating false narratives through the use of deepfakes, AI, and flat out lying to them about everything, all for the sake of higher ratings. Documentary? No. Stephen King adaptation. You're not far off, though. So I actually haven't seen the Schwarzenegger film, I was a little too young for it, or read the Stephen King story. So is The Running Man a good adaptation? Beats me. I heard Stephen King said he liked it, so there's that, but all I can do is tell you if it's a good movie. Damn it, I wanted to like this thing. The trailers made it look like so much fun. And there are certainly fun things in the movie, mainly some of the action set pieces, but man, it went off the rails. I don't know what happened with the script, especially since that's something Edgar Wright is usually really on the ball with, but this thing was all over the place. The ideas are good. Glenn Powell is down on his luck, can't get a job, desperate for money to help his family, so with no other choice, he signs up for a crazy game show with life and death stakes in the slim hope that he can win a big cash prize before he, gets killed. Like Squid Game crossed with bounty hunters and shit. The premise is simple enough, but wow, did they overcomplicate this. The plot depends really heavily on contrivances and new characters who come along at just the right time every time they've written Glenn Powell's character Ben into a corner they don't know how to get him out of. It gets weirdly convoluted towards the end, and despite the ideas being cool, they don't seem to have the time or the money to explore them in a way that would make the story better. Even the basic storytelling isn't very good. They pretty much skip over like 90% of the world building and then just drop you into the middle of things and expect you to catch up with them. The incident that landed Ben in the predicament he's in, where he has no other option but to sign up for the Running Man, that happened before the movie starts, and it begins after the incident with people just talking about it as if we're supposed to know what it is. And the big economic class divide that's motivating so many things in the story, we barely see that either. A bunch of characters talk about it from time to time. Otherwise, there's a couple food lines at the start of the movie, not much else. And there's a lot of information about other things that the film doesn't seem to know how to impart to the viewer, and they didn't seem to want to spend the time to do that organically, so what they end up doing is writing Ben into a tight spot, then some new character we've never met before conveniently shows up to help him. This character exposits a bunch of stuff that we need to know to understand what's going on, then Ben goes off on his own again, runs into the next new character, and the process repeats itself. This happens 3 separate times, and it just felt like such amateur hour screenwriting. Could they really think of no better way to get this stuff across? Scenes where we actually see this stuff rather than just being told about it would have made this so much better, but maybe they didn't have the budget to shoot those scenes, so they just kind of wrote around the problem instead. That, or they really just didn't know what to do with it in the first place. And never is that more frustrating than with how they use AI. And I don't mean they used AI to make the movie. Characters in the movie use AI. I won't spoil it, but they had a golden opportunity here to do some razor-sharp social commentary, the good kind, about something everybody's talking about right now. What the villains in the movie do with AI is so unnerving because it's like 2 months away from not even being science fiction. Seriously, in a matter of weeks, this could be happening in real life. So this part was super interesting to me. Oh man, this feels downright prophetic. Where are they gonna go with it? And it doesn't really go anywhere. I assumed it would come back around and Ben would take it and use it against the bad guys somehow like they used it against him, but no, it's just a thing the bad guys use because they're bad, and that's it. It doesn't really factor in beyond that. If anything, it makes the story more convoluted in the climax because the writers wanted to use it but didn't know how to resolve it. And this was baffling to me, especially with AI being such a big deal right now. Just imagine what you could have done with this. Oh my god, what a waste of a great idea. And frankly, all the other social commentary here is the same way. There's plenty of stuff in this movie that's incredibly topical right now, but they really don't do anything with it outside of exposition taking the place of world building they either weren't budgeted for or Edgar Wright wasn't interested in. Deep fakes are bad. The economy sucks. Wow, you're really blowing my mind with those cutting edge takes. Do you have anything else to say on the matter? No? Oh. Alright. I guess I'll just look at Glenn Powell half naked then. In fact, Edgar Wright seemed unfocused in general on this project. He couldn't nail down a consistent tone for one thing. The movie oscillates from being a serious chase thriller to being satirical and downright goofy at times, and it never seems to figure out which one it wants to be, so it tries to be both, and the two things really don't go together. And Glenn Powell's character is trying to be both a good man backed into a corner out of desperation to help his family, and a guy who's seething with barely controlled rage and resentment at the society that put him in this situation in the first place and wants nothing more than to burn it all down. It's like they shot two different versions of this movie and tried to combine them into one, and instead of the best of both worlds, all we got was tonal whiplash. And that's a shame, because Glenn Powell really does work his ass off in this film. The script has a lot of problems, but he does everything he possibly can to elevate it. Aside from a handful of scenes with the villains, we're on him the entire time, and he's got all the screen presence he needs to sell that. Hell, there's a whole action sequence with him wearing nothing but a towel, and the fact that he pulls this off as well as he does, even with the subpar writing, is really impressive. The movie's not great, but it would have been a lot worse without Glenn Powell. He's easily the best thing in it, and Coleman Domingo is terrific too. He looks like he was having an absolute blast playing the host of the Running Man game show. The dude is so suave and charming and magnetic, and he's fun to watch. When these guys are on the screen, you're paying attention, but the movie just lets them down. Maybe more action would have helped. The action we do get is fun, shot on a budget obviously, but it's definitely when the movie clicks the most. Ben goes to some crazy lengths to avoid his pursuers and stay alive, but it never gets overly ridiculous like a lot of other action movies do these days. It's always just believable enough, so I enjoyed that stuff. But because they can't commit to it being a chase movie, they keep interrupting the action with exposition scenes and all these other things that drag the movie down or try to turn it into something else. And this becomes a big problem in the climax, where they hit you with a bunch of surprise twists and new revelations in the last few minutes, and it all just feels so unnecessary. You're adding these new things to the story that don't need to be there at the last minute, and for what? To make a plot that's already got too many balls in the air more complicated? It was too much, it didn't work, and it just made the ending of the movie a big, rushed, convoluted mess. What a disappointment this was. I felt bad for Glenn Powell, who is talented and has legit leading man aura. He did everything he could to make this film work, but he deserved a better movie than this. The Running Man is an alarming misfire for Edgar Wright, whose movies I normally really like, but something went wrong here. The movie has a lot of cool ideas and concepts, but it doesn't seem to know what to do with them or how to incorporate them into this narrative about a guy on a life and death game show, and apparently it didn't have the money to showcase these things the way you'd want them to be either. And that really sucks, because there are so many things in this movie that are really big issues in society right now that if the film had been a little smarter about what it did with them, it could have really tapped into something. Or it could have not gone down that road at all, ditched the social commentary angle, and just made this a straight up chase movie. That way you could lose a lot of the exposition dumps and some of the random characters, characters, flesh out the important characters a little bit more, either option I think would have made this movie better. It's not complete crap or anything. I liked some of the performances, the action scenes are fun, and Edgar Wright's directing chops are still there, more or less, but the script is very clumsily written and unfocused. The filmmakers couldn't decide on a consistent tone or pace or on which version of the movie they wanted to make, so it ended up being very confused and messy and just not what it should have been. I still like Edgar Wright, but something about this film tripped him up. He made some mistakes here. Everybody screws up once in a while. Go back to the drawing board, work on something else, maybe something you don't have to get too fancy with. Make sure you've got the script figured out before you shoot it, and I'll be there for his next movie. Unfortunately, this one just wasn't it. So let's put it behind us and run in the other direction, hopefully toward a movie that's better than this was. Thanks so much for watching. While you're here, ding that bell icon and follow all of my social media so you can always be notified when I upload new stuff. The links are down there. And if you want to support the channel, being interactive is the best and maybe only way that counts anymore. So it's more important than ever for you to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you're still subscribed, because what really deserves to be put on a game show with life and death stakes and be shot in the head walking out of a convenience store like an absolute dumbass is the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now. I'll be back with more soon. Take care, stay tuned. I'll see you next time.